The giant view screen in the Galactic Confederation Council chamber showed a blue-green planet spinning slowly against the backdrop of stars. 53 alien representatives from 17 star systems watched in silence as High Counselor Zixtar stepped onto the speaking platform. His translucent skin glowed with faint blue light, a sign of excitement among the Malurian species. "Fellow council members," Zixtar said, his voice soft, yet carrying to every corner of the chamber. "Our scout ships have confirmed the presence of an intelligent species on this planet they call Earth. They have developed nuclear power, basic space travel, and global communications networks without any outside assistance." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Most species had required Confederation guidance to reach such technological milestones. Ambassador Velox, a tall, slender being with silver scales and 4 arms, leaned forward. "Have they achieved unity? Do they have a planetary government?" "No," Zixtar replied. "They remain divided into nearly 200 sovereign territories they call nations. They have an organization for diplomatic relations, but it holds limited power." "Primitive," sniffed Representative Quell, a spherical being who floated above her seat. "Typical of pre-contact species." Zixtar touched a control panel, and the view screen shifted to show cities, vehicles, and humans going about their daily lives. Their disunity has not prevented progress. In fact, it may have accelerated it through competition. They have accomplished in 3 centuries what took most of us millennia. "What concerns me," said General Thrix, the only Confederation military leader on the council, "is this." The screen changed to show soldiers marching, tanks rolling across deserts, and ships firing weapons at sea. "They still wage war," Thrix continued, "not just in their distant past but currently. 17 active conflicts exist on the planet at this moment." A shocked silence fell over the chamber. For most species present, war was something from ancient history books, not a current reality. "They fight over resources, territory, ideology, and religion," Zixtar explained. "Yet they also create art, music, and literature of remarkable beauty. They care for their young, build hospitals, and many dedicate their lives to helping others." The council members watched footage of humans laughing, dancing, planting gardens, and caring for animals. Then the images shifted again to show bombed buildings and refugee camps. "How can they be both?" asked Ambassador Velox. "How can the same species create such beauty while inflicting such suffering?" Zixtar's skin darkened slightly, showing his deep thought. "That is why I find them fascinating. They contain contradictions we must understand before making contact." The council voted to send a small observation team to Earth to learn more before any official first contact. Ambassador Velox volunteered to lead the mission. 2 months later, Velox's ship entered Earth orbit under a cloaking field that made it invisible to human radar and telescopes. The observation team included scientists from 6 different species, each specialized in different aspects of civilization studies. On Earth, Major Frank Miller walked through the Pentagon corridors with quick, purposeful steps. At 42, Frank had spent over 20 years in the Marines before being assigned as a military advisor to the president. His close-cropped hair was peppered with gray, and a scar ran across his left eyebrow from a mission in the Middle East. "You're late, Major," said General Harris as Frank entered the secure briefing room. "Sorry, sir. Traffic was backed up on the bridge," Frank replied, taking a seat. The room contained 12 people, including military officers, NASA scientists, and intelligence officials. At the front stood Dr. Olivia Tate, a xenobiologist with dark, curly hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. Despite never having met an actual alien, she was the government's top expert on theoretical extraterrestrial biology. "As I was saying," Olivia continued, "the satellite detected unusual radiation patterns in orbit. They appeared and disappeared within minutes, but the energy signature doesn't match anything we've ever recorded." "Could it be a malfunction?" someone asked. "3 different satellites picked it up," Olivia replied. "And it's happened 4 times in the past week, always above different countries." Frank leaned forward. "You think it's aliens?" It wasn't a question, and Olivia met his gaze directly. "Yes, Major, I think someone's watching us." General Harris sighed. Dr. Tate, we appreciate your expertise, but we need more than unusual radiation patterns before we start talking about visitors from space. Frank studied the data displayed on the screen. What if she's right, sir? Shouldn't we prepare for that? Possibility? Prepare how, Major? Build space lasers, alert the public, and cause panic? The general shook his head. We keep monitoring, we analyze the data, and we keep this quiet until we have something concrete. Above them, invisible in orbit, Velox watched the meeting through advanced surveillance technology. His chief scientist, a purple-skinned Krith named Milan, floated beside him. They suspect our presence, Milan said. Their instruments are more sensitive than we anticipated. Velox nodded. This complicates things. The humans are observant. If they've detected our observation platforms, they may detect our main ship. Should we withdraw? No. We continue as planned, but with additional caution. Velox's 4 hands tapped at different controls. Increase cloaking power, and let's speed up our timetable. I want to understand their military capabilities better. Unknown. To the Confederation observers, another ship lurked in the shadows of Earth's moon. Its jagged black hull absorbed light rather than reflecting it. Inside, Commander Vrak of the Drekthar Empire studied the Confederation vessel with hungry eyes. The peace lovers think they're the only ones who discovered this world, Vrak growled to his second-in-command. His thick, armored skin was scarred from ancient battles, and his eyes glowed red in the dim light of the command center. They always were blind to threats, replied Sub-Commander Zorak. What do you make of these humans? Vrak displayed images captured from Earth's broadcasts. Look at them. They wage war while building civilizations. They understand violence as a tool. Hito clicked his claws together in excitement. They remind me of our ancestors, before our warrior spirit was nearly wiped out by the Confederation's peace. They could be useful, Zorak suggested. More than useful. Vrak's mouth twisted in what passed for a smile among his species. They could be the weapon that finally brings down the Confederation. We just need to guide their natural aggression in the right direction. Back on Earth, Olivia Tate left the Pentagon meeting frustrated. As she walked to her car, she noticed a man following her. She quickened her pace, but relaxed when she recognized Frank Miller. Dr. Tate, he called. Wait up. She stopped and turned. Major Miller, come to tell me I'm crazy too? Frank shook his head. I think you might be right. And unlike the general, I believe in preparing for all possibilities. What are you suggesting? An unofficial working group. People who take the possibility seriously and can help develop response protocols, just in case. Olivia studied him for a moment. You really believe me? Let's just say I've seen enough strange things in my career to keep an open mind. He handed her a card with his number. Call me if you notice anything else unusual. As they parted ways, neither was aware of the 2 alien forces watching them from above. One seeking peaceful contact, the other looking for proxies in a war that had been dormant for centuries. Earth stood on the precipice of a new era, and the actions of people like Frank and Olivia would help determine whether that future included peace or interstellar conflict. 6 months passed after the strange radiation signals were detected in Earth's orbit. Frank Miller now led a small, unofficial team investigating possible alien activity. They worked from a secure room in the basement of a government building. In Washington, D.C., maps and satellite images covered the walls. Computer screens displayed data from around the world. Olivia Tate stood before a whiteboard filled with notes and drawings. The signals have appeared over 23 different countries now, she said, pointing to red dots on a world map. Always brief, always moving, always just beyond our ability to track them. Joe Sanchez, a former Army communications expert with a thick mustache, looked up from his computer. I've analyzed radio frequencies from all the locations. There's definitely something there. Brief pulses that don't match any known pattern. Linda Powell, a NASA scientist with short blonde hair, nodded. Whatever it is, it's not natural, and it's not ours. Frank crossed his arms. So we have visitors. The question is, what do they want? The room fell silent. This question had haunted them for months. Why would aliens observe Earth but not make contact? Perhaps they're studying us, Olivia suggested, learning our languages, our cultures, our behaviors before revealing themselves. Or planning something less friendly, Frank said quietly. Above Earth, Ambassador Velix prepared for the Confederation's first official contact with humans. His ship now orbited openly, having dropped its cloaking field the day before. The sudden appearance of the massive vessel had caused panic on Earth. Military forces worldwide had gone on high alert. News channels showed constant footage of the ship. Religious leaders offered different interpretations of what the visitors might mean. Are the communication systems ready? Velix asked his crew. Yes, Ambassador, replied the communications officer. We can broadcast to all Earth frequencies. And the translation program? It has processed enough of their languages. We can communicate effectively with most regions. Velix's four hands tapped nervously on the console. Begin transmission in 1 hour. Send the standard greeting package to their world leaders first, then to the general population. In the shadows of the moon, Commander Vrak watched these preparations with growing excitement. The fools are about to reveal themselves, he told his crew. The humans will be frightened. Their military forces are already preparing for possible attack. Sub-Commander Zorak studied the tactical display. Earth's weapons cannot harm either our ships or the Confederation vessel. That's not the point, Vrak replied. We need to ensure the humans see the Confederation as a threat, then we can offer assistance. The attack packages are ready, Zorak reported. They will appear to come from human sources, but will be effective against Confederation shields. Vrak nodded with satisfaction. Perfect. Once the Confederation makes contact, we wait for the right moment to strike. In the White House Situation Room, the President of the United States faced the greatest crisis in human history. Military leaders, scientists, and advisors argued about how to respond to the alien ship. Frank Miller had been called in due to his work on the investigation team. He stood against the wall, listening to the heated debate. We should launch a preemptive strike, General Harris insisted. Show them we won't be intimidated. With what? A NASA official countered. Their technology is clearly centuries ahead of ours. We'd just be provoking them. We don't even know their intentions, added the Secretary of State. This could be peaceful contact. The President raised his hand for silence. Dr. Tate, you've been studying this possibility. What's your assessment? All eyes turned to Olivia, who stood beside a screen showing the alien ship. Her heart raced, but her voice remained steady. The ship has made no aggressive moves, she said. If they wanted to attack, they could have done so without revealing themselves. I believe this is an attempt at peaceful contact. Just then, the room's screens flickered and a new image appeared. A strange being with translucent blue skin and large expressive eyes looked out at them. The room fell silent. People of Earth, the alien said in slightly accented English. I am Ambassador Velix of the Galactic Confederation. We come in peace and friendship. The message continued, explaining that the Confederation was an alliance of peaceful species who had been observing Earth and now wished to establish formal relations. They offered scientific and medical knowledge as gifts of goodwill. After the message ended, chaos erupted in the Situation Room. Some believed the offer, others suspected a trap. The President ordered an emergency United Nations meeting to form a unified human response. As world leaders gathered in Geneva, Switzerland for this historic summit, Frank found Olivia in a quiet corner of the conference building. What do you think? He asked her. Are they telling the truth? Olivia nodded. I believe they are. Everything about their approach fits with a peaceful contact scenario. I want to trust them, Frank admitted. But something doesn't feel right. Why now? Why reveal themselves after months of secret observation? Maybe they learned enough about us to feel comfortable making contact, Olivia suggested. The summit proceeded over the next 3 days. Ambassador Velix and 3 other Confederation representatives met with human leaders. They discussed trade, cultural exchange, and shared knowledge. Most humans began to accept that the aliens truly came, in peace. On the fourth day of the summit, as Velox addressed the assembly, bright flashes lit up the windows of the conference hall. Explosions rocked the building. Frank's military training kicked in immediately. He tackled Olivia to the ground as part of the ceiling collapsed nearby. "We're under attack," someone shouted. Through the dust and smoke, Frank saw Velix's security team surround the ambassador. One of the aliens fell, blue blood spreading across its chest. Frank pulled Olivia toward the exit. "We need to get out of here." Outside, chaos reigned. Several buildings around the conference center burned. Emergency vehicles raced through the streets. In the sky above, small craft that looked like Earth military jets fired weapons at the Confederation representative's shuttle. "Those are our planes," Frank said in confusion. "Why would we attack now during peace talks?" Olivia pointed to a nearby television screen in a shop window. The breaking news showed images of similar attacks happening at Confederation contact points around the world. The reporter stated that a group calling itself Earth First had claimed responsibility, denouncing any alliance with alien species. More shocking was the name mentioned as the leader of this group, Major Frank Miller. Frank stared at the screen in disbelief. "That's not possible. I'm being framed." Olivia gripped his arm. "We need to hide. If they think you're behind this, they'll be looking for you." As they slipped away into the crowd, neither noticed the small drone following them, a Drekthar, surveillance device recording everything. In his ship, Commander Vrak watched the unfolding chaos with satisfaction. "The first stage is complete," he told his crew. "The humans will blame each other. The Confederation will respond to protect their people, and the war will begin." Frank and Olivia found shelter in a small hotel on the outskirts of Geneva. They paid cash and used fake names. The room was basic: one bed, a small bathroom, and a table with 2 chairs. The TV showed news reports about the attacks. Every channel blamed Frank Miller and his supposed Earth First group. "I need to clear my name," Frank said, pacing the small room. "Someone set me up." Olivia sat on the edge of the bed, her laptop open. "The question is who, and why frame you specifically? It has to be someone who knows about our investigation team." Frank stopped at the window, carefully looking out from behind the curtain. But this attack was too well coordinated, too professional. Olivia typed rapidly on her keyboard. "I'm trying to analyze the video footage from the attack. There's something strange about those fighter jets." Frank's phone vibrated. He had bought a prepaid phone that morning and only shared the number with 2 people he trusted. The message was from Joe Sanchez. "Safe house ready. Address follows. Destroy this after reading." "We have somewhere to go," Frank told Olivia. "Joe has a place." They left the hotel through a back exit, constantly watching for followers. They took 3 different buses across the city, eventually reaching a small, run-down apartment building in an industrial area. Joe Sanchez opened the door before they knocked. His normally cheerful face was serious. "Get in quick." Inside, Linda Powell sat at a table covered with equipment. A makeshift operations center had been set up. Maps, computers, and communication devices filled the small living room. "Good to see you're both alive," Linda said. "The whole world is looking for you, Frank." "I had nothing to do with the attacks," Frank said firmly. "We know that," Joe replied. "But someone went to a lot of trouble to make it look like you did." Linda pointed to a computer screen. "I've been intercepting communications. The Confederation ship has moved to a defensive position. They're demanding the surrender of all Earth. First members within 72 hours, or they'll take action themselves." Frank sat heavily on a folding chair. "Great. Now we have angry aliens to worry about too." "It gets worse," Joe said. "Look at this." He showed them footage from a military base. Soldiers loaded weapons onto trucks, aircraft prepared for takeoff, ships moved into position at sea. "The world's governments are mobilizing for war," Joe explained. "They're divided on whether to surrender the supposed terrorists or fight the Confederation." Olivia suddenly straightened in her chair. "I found something." She turned her laptop so everyone could see. "Look at this frame from the attack." She had isolated an image of one of the fighter jets that attacked the conference center. It looked like a standard human jet, But when she enhanced a specific section, something strange appeared. "The pilot," she said. "Look at his arm as he reaches for a control." The image showed what appeared to be a red-skinned, clawed hand, definitely not human. "What is that?" Frank asked. "Not Confederation," Olivia said confidently. "Their species are well documented in the information they shared. This is something else." "A third party?" Linda suggested. Frank nodded slowly. "Someone who wants humans and the Confederation to fight each other." Joe scratched his mustache thoughtfully. "But who? And why?" At that moment, the front door exploded, inward. Smoke filled the room. Frank pushed Olivia under the table as armed figures rushed in. "Down on the ground, now!" a voice shouted. Frank prepared to fight, but stopped when he recognized the insignia on their uniforms, U.S. Special Forces. He raised his hands. "I'm unarmed," he said clearly. "We all are." The soldiers secured the room, handcuffing everyone. A tall woman in a black suit entered once the area was clear. She looked at Frank with cold eyes. "Major Miller, you're under arrest for terrorism and treason." "I didn't do it," Frank said calmly. "We have evidence. Save it for your trial," she interrupted. "If you get one." The soldiers led them out to waiting vehicles. Frank was put in a separate car from the others. As they drove away, he noticed something odd in the sky, a brief shimmer like heat waves but localized and moving. His training told him it might be some kind of cloaked aircraft. They were taken to a secure military facility outside the city. Frank was placed in a small interrogation room. He waited for hours before the door finally opened. To his surprise, General Harris walked in. "Sir," Frank said, standing up. "Sit down, Miller," the general ordered. "You're in enough trouble already." "General, I'm being framed. The attacks weren't carried out by humans." Harris raised an eyebrow. "We have video evidence, eyewitness accounts, and your fingerprints on materials found at one of the staging areas." "Planted," Frank insisted. "Sir, think about it. Why would I sabotage peaceful contact? What would I gain?" "Ideology can make people do strange things," Harris replied. "Your military record shows you've always been suspicious of foreign influences. Perhaps you extended that to aliens." Frank leaned forward. "General, you know me better than that. And we found something. Evidence of a third species involved in this." Harris studied Frank's face for a long moment. "Show me." "The evidence is on Dr. Tate's laptop. Where is she?" "In another room. I'll have her brought here." While they waited, Frank explained their theory. Harris listened without interrupting. When Olivia was brought in, still handcuffed but carrying her laptop, she quickly showed him the enhanced images. Harris stared at the alien hand on the screen. "This could be faked," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Test it," Olivia urged. "Have your best analysts examine it, and there's more. Biological evidence at the attack sites. I found microscopic traces that don't match Confederation biology." Harris stood up. "I need to make some calls. You two stay here." After he left, Frank turned to Olivia. "Do you think he believes us?" "I don't know, but he's our best hope right now." In orbit above Earth, Ambassador Velox received disturbing news. His science officer had analyzed debris from the destroyed shuttle. "The weapons signatures," the officer reported. "They match ancient Drekthar technology." Velox's skin darkened with shock. "That's impossible. The Drekthar have been extinct for centuries." "The evidence is clear. And there's more. The human weapons used in the attack, they were modified with Drekthar components." Velox moved to the view screen, looking down at Earth. "If the Drekthar have returned and are manipulating the humans, it could mean war on a scale not seen for millennia," the science officer finished. In the shadows of the moon, Commander Vrak prepared the next phase of his plan. A large missile designed to look like Earth technology but carrying a Drekthar warhead was loaded into a launch tube. "Target?" asked Zorak. "The Confederation's medical ship," Vrak replied. "Their most vulnerable vessel, filled with their civilian scientists and doctors. And once it's destroyed?" Vrak's mouth stretched in a cold smile. The Confederation will have no choice but to retaliate. Their precious peace will be shattered, and the humans will fight back with all their primitive fury. Zorak looked troubled. The humans are more resourceful than we anticipated. That Miller and his scientist have already found traces of our involvement. 2 humans who are now discredited and imprisoned. Vrak dismissed. By the time anyone believes them, it will be too late. The war will have begun. The missile launcher hummed as it powered up. Earth hung in the view screen, blue and peaceful. Soon that peace would be shattered and the galaxy would tremble at the unleashed fury of humanity. Fury directed by Drekthar cunning against the hated Confederation. A bright flash lit up Earth's night sky. The Confederation medical ship exploded in orbit, killing all 300 aliens on board. Within minutes, emergency broadcasts filled every radio and television channel on Earth. The Confederation announced that a missile from Earth had destroyed their vessel. Despite human leaders denying responsibility, the evidence seemed clear. In the military facility where Frank and Olivia were held, alarms blared. General Harris rushed into their room, his face grim. "We're at war," he said simply. "A Confederation medical ship was just destroyed. They're blaming us." "It wasn't us," Frank insisted. "It's the same pattern. The third party making it look like humans are attacking," Harris nodded. "I believe you now. Our radar shows the missile came from the far side of the moon, but it had U.S. Air Force markings." "The Drekthar," Olivia said. "That must be who's behind this." "Drek what?" Harris asked. "It's just a theory, but based on the biological traces and what we've seen, I believe it's a species called the Drekthar. The Confederation data mentioned them as an extinct aggressive species that challenged them centuries ago. Not so extinct, it seems," Frank muttered. Harris checked his watch. "The Confederation has deployed their peacekeeping fleet. They've established a blockade around Earth and are demanding we surrender those responsible." "We need to tell them the truth," Olivia said urgently. "We've tried. All communications are being jammed." Harris looked at Frank. "Major, I'm reinstating you. Your mission is to find proof of this third party and somehow get it to the Confederation before this escalates." Further, Harris unlocked their handcuffs and handed Frank a security badge. "This will get you access to what you need. Dr. Tate, your colleagues have been released as well." As they left the room, the building shook violently. Dust fell from the ceiling. "What was that?" Frank asked. "Confederation ships have started limited strikes against military targets," Harris explained, leading them down a corridor. "They're trying to disable our ability to launch more attacks." They reached a command center where screens showed the situation developing worldwide. Confederation ships hovered over major cities. Small, precise weapon strikes hit military bases, communication centers, and weapons facilities. "They're being careful to avoid civilian casualties," Olivia noted. "For now," Harris said darkly. "But if this continues to escalate..." Joe and Linda waited for them in the command center. Joe had set up communications equipment while Linda worked on several computers simultaneously. "Boss!" Joe exclaimed when he saw Frank. "Good to see you free." "What's our status?" Frank asked. Linda pointed to a screen. "Most of Earth's militaries are mobilizing. Some are trying to surrender, others are planning to fight back." "Any success contacting the Confederation?" "None," Joe said. "All standard channels are being jammed, and it's not the Confederation doing it. The interference pattern doesn't match their technology. The Drekthar," Frank concluded. "They're making sure we can't communicate." Olivia studied the radar displays. "We need a ship." Everyone turned to look at her. "A ship?" Frank repeated. "Yes. If we can't communicate from here, we need to get to the Confederation flagship directly. Show them our evidence in person." Harris shook his head. "Impossible. The Confederation has established a no-fly zone. Any Earth vessel attempting to reach orbit will be shot down." "What about the experimental aircraft at Area 51, Frank suggested. "The ones using reverse-engineered technology." Harris stared at him. "That's classified. How do you..." "With respect, sir, everyone knows about them. Would they be detected by Confederation sensors?" Harris considered this. "Possibly not. They use stealth technology we don't fully understand ourselves. But reaching Nevada will be difficult with the current strikes. We have to try, Frank insisted. While they prepared for the journey, the situation around the world deteriorated rapidly. The Confederation, expecting quick surrender from what they assumed was an inferior species, were shocked by humanity's response. In orbit, Ambassador Velox watched in disbelief as human fighters engaged his ships using tactics never seen before. Despite their technological disadvantage, the humans fought with unexpected effectiveness. Several Confederation vessels reported damage. "How is this possible?" Velox demanded. "Their weapons shouldn't be able to penetrate our shields." "They're using unusual attack patterns," his tactical officer replied, "sacrificing their craft to target specific shield generators. It's illogical." On the ground, human soldiers employed guerrilla tactics against Confederation landing parties. Rather than facing the superior aliens directly, they used the environment, improvised traps and hit-and-run attacks. Meanwhile, Commander Vrak observed the escalating conflict with increasing concern. The Drekthar had expected the technologically superior Confederation to quickly overwhelm human resistance. They had not anticipated humanity's adaptability and willingness to sacrifice. "These humans are more dangerous than we calculated," Vrak told his officers. "They fight like our ancient warrior castes, with complete disregard for their own safety." From a secure hangar in Nevada, a strange aircraft rose into the night sky. Its shape seemed to bend light around it, making it difficult to focus on. Inside, Frank, Olivia, Joe, and Linda strapped themselves into seats as the pilot, a woman named Captain Susan Grant, guided the craft upward. "This is the USS Defiant," Susan explained. "First of her kind, built using technology we've been developing for decades. If anything can get through the blockade, it's her." "How long until we reach the Confederation flagship?" Frank asked. "About 30 minutes if we're not detected." Susan's hands moved confidently over controls that looked nothing like a standard aircraft. "But we'll need to pass through the worst of the fighting." Through the viewport they could see flashes of light, human and alien weapons firing in the darkness above Earth. Below them, cities burned from precision strikes and human counterattacks. "This is worse than I expected," Olivia said quietly. As they ascended, they saw the true scale of the Confederation blockade. Dozens of massive ships formed a web around Earth. Fighter craft darted between them, engaging human aircraft that bravely but futilely challenged the alien vessels. "There," Susan pointed. "That largest ship at the center of the formation, that's their command vessel. That's where we'll find this High Counselor you're looking for." The Defiant accelerated, its experimental engines pushing it faster than any human craft had flown before. For several minutes they managed to avoid detection, slipping through gaps in the Confederation sensor net. Then alarms blared throughout the small ship. "We've been spotted," Susan announced grimly. 3 Confederation interceptors closing fast." "Can we outrun them?" Frank asked. Susan shook her head. "Not a chance, but we might be able to outmaneuver them." What followed was the most terrifying flight experience of their lives. Captain Grant pushed the experimental craft to its limits, executing maneuvers that seemed to defy physics. The Confederation pilots, trained in traditional space combat tactics, struggled to anticipate the human pilots' seemingly random changes in direction. "They're firing!" Joe shouted as energy beams lanced past their ship. Susan rolled the craft, diving beneath a larger Confederation vessel and using it as cover. "We're almost to the flagship, but they're closing all approach vectors. We need a diversion," Frank said. As if in answer, dozens of human fighters suddenly appeared, launching a coordinated attack against the flagship's escort vessels. The radio crackled with a familiar voice. "Defiant, this is General Harris. We've devoted our remaining air forces to give you a window. Make it count." Frank watched as brave pilots sacrificed themselves to draw away the Confederation defenders. "We will, sir." Susan guided the Defiant toward the flagship's main docking bay. "Hold on tight. This landing won't be gentle." The experimental craft shuddered as it absorbed a glancing hit from a defense turret. Smoke filled the cabin. Warning lights flashed across every console. "Controls are failing," Susan reported, fighting with the stick. "Going in hot." The Defiant crashed through the energy barrier of the docking bay, skidding across the deck in a shower of sparks before coming to a stop against a far wall. Inside the ship, the humans checked themselves for injuries. "Everyone alive?" Frank asked. They nodded, unbuckling from their seats. Susan checked her console. "Ship's done for, but we made it. Welcome to the Confederation flagship." Frank drew a pistol. "Let's find High Counselor Zixtar and end this war before it really begins." Alarms blared throughout the Confederation flagship as Frank led his team away from their crashed ship. Alien crew members fled at the sight of the armed humans. The corridors were wide with high ceilings, designed for various species of different sizes. "Which way to the command center?" Frank asked. Olivia consulted a small device. "I downloaded the Confederation ship layouts from their shared database. It should be 3 levels up in the center of the ship." They moved quickly, encountering little resistance. Most of the Confederation crew were scientists and diplomats, not soldiers. The few security personnel they met were easily subdued. Frank's team had the element of surprise and the unexpected advantage of human combat training. "Something's wrong," Joe said as they reached a large elevator. "This is too easy." "They're not a warrior species," Olivia reminded him. "Their civilization evolved past physical conflicts centuries ago." "Lucky for us," Linda added, checking the strange weapon she had taken from an unconscious guard. The elevator carried them upward. When the doors opened, they faced a large circular room. View screens showed the battle raging around Earth. Officers worked at control stations. At the center, on a raised platform, stood a tall blue-skinned alien, High Counselor Zixtar. Frank stepped forward, weapon raised. "Nobody move!" The alien officers froze, staring at the humans with wide eyes. Zixtar turned slowly, regarding Frank with what seemed like curiosity rather than fear. "Major Frank Miller," Zixtar said in perfect English. "The terrorist leader. You have courage to come here." "I'm not a terrorist," Frank replied. "We've been set up, both humans and the Confederation." Olivia moved to Frank's side, holding her laptop. "We have proof. Another species has been manipulating both sides." Zixtar studied them. "What proof?" Olivia opened her laptop, ready to show their evidence when a strange sound filled the room, a slow mocking clap. Everyone turned to see a figure emerge from a side door. It wasn't a Confederation alien, but something entirely different, red-skinned with sharp teeth and armored plates covering its body. "Well done, humans," the creature said. "Very impressive." Frank immediately recognized the species from the images they had discovered. Drekthar. Zixtar's skin darkened with shock. "Impossible. The Drekthar have been extinct for centuries." "Not extinct," the creature corrected. "Merely waiting. I am Commander Vrak of the Drekthar Empire." More Drekthar soldiers entered the room, weapons trained on both humans and Confederation officers. Vrak walked casually to the center platform. "How did you get aboard my ship?" Zixtar demanded. Vrak smiled, revealing rows of sharp teeth. "I've been here all along." He reached toward his neck and pressed a small device. His appearance shimmered and changed. Suddenly he looked exactly like Zixtar. "A holographic disguise," Olivia whispered. The real Zixtar stared in horror. "You've been impersonating me? Giving orders in my name?" "Only for the past day," Vrak said, returning to his true form. "The real High Counselor has been locked away since shortly after the medical ship was destroyed. I ordered the attacks on Earth myself." Frank kept his weapon aimed at Vrak. "Why? Why start a war between us?" "Because the Confederation destroyed our empire centuries ago," Vrak snarled. "They forced their peace upon the galaxy, eliminating all who opposed them. They nearly wiped out our species in the name of their precious harmony. We offered you membership in the Confederation," Zixtar protested. "Your leaders refused." "Being absorbed was not an option," Vrak replied. "We were warriors, we still are." He turned to Frank. "That's why we chose humans. You reminded us of ourselves, a species that still understands conflict, still fights for what they want." You were the perfect weapon to use against the Confederation. We're nobody's weapon, Frank said firmly. Vrak laughed. Look at how effectively you fought. The Confederation expected quick surrender from a primitive species. Instead, you've damaged their ships, killed their crews, and adapted to their technology with remarkable speed. Even now, your militaries are reverse engineering captured weapons to use against them. On the view screens, they could see human forces rallying worldwide. Despite heavy losses, Earth's militaries were becoming more effective with each engagement. The Confederation blockade was breaking in several sectors as human pilots employed increasingly creative tactics. Enough, Frank said. This ends now. Dr. Tate, show the High Counselor our evidence. Olivia stepped toward Zixtar, but Vrak moved with surprising speed. He grabbed her, pressing a weapon against her head. I think not, he said. The war has already begun. It doesn't matter what evidence you have. Captain Susan Grant had been quiet, staying behind the others. Now she moved with the quick reflexes of a trained pilot. She threw a small device toward Vrak, a flashbang grenade taken from their ship. The explosion of light and sound disoriented the Drekthar commander. His grip on Olivia loosened. Frank fired his weapon, hitting Vrak in the shoulder. The Drekthar soldiers opened fire. Confederation officers dove for cover. Frank pulled Olivia down as energy blasts crisscrossed the command center. Joe and Linda returned fire, creating enough confusion for Susan to reach the ship's controls. With quick movements, she activated the flagship's communication system. Broadcasting. On all frequencies, she announced. Olivia scrambled to her laptop, connecting it to the Confederation systems, sending our evidence to all Earth and Confederation channels. On screens around the room, images appeared. The Drekthar manipulating events, the faked attacks, the biological evidence. Both human and Confederation forces received the transmission. Simultaneously, Vrak, wounded but still dangerous, lunged toward the controls. Turn it off. Frank tackled him to the ground. They struggled, the Drekthar's natural strength nearly overwhelming the human. But Frank had been fighting his entire military career. He knew how to use leverage and technique against a stronger opponent. With a practiced move, he pinned the alien commander. It's over, he told Vrak. Your plan failed. Around Earth, the fighting began to slow as both sides received the evidence. Confederation ships ceased firing. Human forces stood down from their attacks. Communication channels opened between the previously warring parties. High Counselor Zixtar approached the humans. You risked your lives to stop this war. We all would have lost if it continued, Frank said, still holding Vrak down. The Drekthar would have let us destroy each other. Zixtar's skin glowed with a soft blue light. Perhaps we misjudged humanity. We saw your capacity for violence as a sign of primitiveness. Now I see it differently. How's that? Frank asked. You fight fiercely when threatened, yes, but you fight just as hard for peace when given the chance. Zixtar looked at the screens, showing the battle subsiding. That is a trait the Confederation could learn from. In the following days, the truth spread throughout Earth and the Confederation. The Drekthar plot was exposed. Vrak and his followers were taken into custody. Communication between humans and the Confederation resumed, this time with greater understanding on both sides. 1 month later, Frank stood in the renovated United Nations Hall in New York. Beside him were Olivia, Joe, Linda, and Captain Susan Grant, all honored as heroes. Before them stood High Counselor Zixtar and representatives from 17 alien species. Today, Zixtar announced, we welcome Earth not as a junior member of the Confederation, but as a full partner. He turned to face Frank and his team. Your species has shown us something we had forgotten, that strength and peace are not opposing forces. Sometimes one must fight to protect the other. Frank stepped forward to sign the historic agreement. Around the world, people celebrated. The war that nearly happened had instead forged an unexpected alliance. Humanity had proven itself not just through its capacity for violence, but through its equal commitment to truth and peace. On their hidden moonbase, the remaining Drekthar watched this ceremony with dismay. Their plan had backfired completely. Rather than destroying each other, humans and the Confederation had grown stronger together. And now, they faced a new and uniquely dangerous alliance. The Confederation's advanced technology guided by humanity's strategic brilliance. The galaxy would never be the same again. And across the 17 star systems, many species watched with newfound respect, and perhaps a touch of fear, as humans took their place among the stars.